Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Music Interviews. I am so excited to be back with my friend Yiyi Ku. How are you doing, Yiyi?
I'm doing great, thank you, Glory. Good to see you again.
Yes, this has really been an interesting time. The last time we spoke was when your student Kodi Lee was in the finals of America's Got Talent, and then of course we know what happened, and we're going to be talking about that. But what else happened was we went from teaching in person to teaching online. So a lot of things have changed, but let's maybe just talk about you and what's been happening in your studio. And then we'll talk about, of course, your famous student, Kodi Lee. And actually you have a lot of famous students, but what's been happening for you in the last year and a half?
It's hard to know where to start, right?
Yes,
We've all had a very challenging year and a half. I think everybody in the world would agree with that.
yes.
Like many people, probably most people, I started transitioning teaching online since March of last year, and I am still only teaching online at this point. I do plan to start gradually to teach in person again from the fall of this year. Just depending on how things go, but that is definitely my plan.
Yes.
So.
Well, and it's been interesting, as you said, that we've all had to learn so much this year. For
Mhm.
many of us, we have our acoustic instruments and we're not necessarily used to even teaching online. And then all of a sudden, oh, yes, you are. So it's been a
Yeah.
lot to learn. So
Hmm.
let's just back up a little
Sure.
to the last time when we chatted and we talked about, your teaching methods and things like that with Kodi
Hmm.
Lee, of course. So take us back to that night and maybe walk us through, what all happened for you because we were all watching America's Got Talent. Of course, we were watching live and jumping up and down, screaming and yelling. So what was it like for you when Kodi Lee got that final "You're the winner"?
It was very moving. I was in the audience, obviously. We went to the final, and it was just quite undescribable, the feeling, just feeling so proud of him and knowing that he deserved it, knowing that he got recognized. I think that just was the most overwhelming feeling ever. It's hard to put into words, but yeah, I was in the audience and it was just incredible, that sense of pride for him and just so happy for him, and his whole family. They all deserve that recognition, and he did not get to where he is today without hard work, without tears, without sweat, without blood, without heart, right, without love, right. It's everything, right, everything he has been through and everything his family has been through. It's all sort of all came together that night. So it was just, I mean, I still feel like I still feel tears in my eyes when I think back to that night. So that's how powerful it was.
It really was. It was absolutely magical. And I think the whole world, that was watching and obviously continues to watch the online videos just went, what a magical moment
Mm-hmm.
to say,
Yeah.
dream big. Like there's so many opportunities for musicians to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish things if they put their mind to it and then they have that support system. And obviously you've been Cody's teacher for a long time, piano teacher. And so what was the next steps for Kodi, like performance wise after he won AGT?
Well, I think I don't um, keep track of his schedule, obviously, but he's been invited to numerous and countless events. At first, I think they were still in person for a while because he won in September, I think, and
Yes,
then the lockdown started in the March of the following year. So he
yes,
had a lot of engagements that were in person, and they were large, big scale events. And then it became all virtual, so he's had a lot of online engagements, and he's, they are very big on giving back. So he's involved in a lot of fundraising events, charity events, programs that benefit other people,
hmm,
programs that they're not just commercial, but they are sort of aimed to look out, for people that are disadvantaged, people that need help. So they're very big on that. So I'm, super, super proud of him, of course. And I definitely admire that he continues to be involved.
Yes. And it's so wonderful, and I'm so grateful to hear, how he's really sharing his legacy of music and providing opportunities for other people to follow in his path. And of course, he has a very amazing supportive family, as well as wonderful teachers. And just before we started recording, we just sort of talked about, what's happened to the lessons. And the thing is, it's interesting because you can be, an Olympic athlete and you still have a coach, and you can become, the America's Got Talent winner, and you still need a coach. And so when you're now, still obviously teaching Kodi Lee, so we talked before we started recording about how this has impacted you as his teacher, and then not so much for him as your student because you're teaching him online. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, because for most students, when we first switched online, it was hard for them because they're not used to me not being right next to them, and they're used to seeing me, as well as hearing me. But for Kodi, he always just heard me, so it was really not very much different for him. I mean, I cannot say on his behalf, but that's how I imagine it anyway. So I feel like his progress has not in any way, shape or form been, deterred because of this online platform. I think if anything, it's he's taken off. So he's really made a lot of progress in classical piano. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it, how sometimes when we have a shift, we all have an opportunity to make a choice. We can either embrace change and learn from it and accept it and move forward, or we can just kind of go, well, I can't do that. And to me, it's all about mindset, but it does come down to choice. And I always love chatting with you because I see such positivity in the way that you teach and in the way that you communicate. And of course, I love your Wonder Woman daughter. I see her there. She's just like a little mini me of you.
Oh, thank you.
And are you teaching your daughter as well?
I am. I started lessons with her last year, right before she turned 5. So she's 5, going to be 6 in October. So it's been about a year, and it has been challenging. The people always say it's hard to teach your own children. So yeah, now that I'm doing it, I totally agree.
Yes.
So
Well, and it's interesting. My young daughter also began piano lessons. She was 3. Well, actually, she wasn't even 3. She was pretty close to 3. I was not her teacher, but I was her coach. So she took formal lessons, and by the time she was 5, she was already performing and composing and doing all of that. She just had that. I called her the little Beethoven because Beethoven was very musical, and so was my daughter. But Beethoven was also messy, and so was my daughter. So I always called her my little Beethoven. But
that's so
I think
cute.
it's really is a wonderful opportunity and relationship that you're developing with your daughter, because one of the things, even though my daughter is now a music producer in Las Vegas and works out of LA and so on. And she said, even though there was these times when you're not really agreeable, because I would tell her, she needs to practice. It's like brushing your teeth. You do it every day, and that's not an option. And I said, when you get to finish your level 8 piano, then you never have to play the piano again. She said, really? Level 8, and then I'm done forever. I said, oh, absolutely. Well, of course, we all know what happens when you reach that level. And she also went on to play jazz and compose. Then it's a whole nother world. So what about your other students? Tell us what else is happening in your studio, because I know you just had an online recital. How did that go?
Well, all the exams, as you know, transition online. So, everybody kept on doing whatever they were doing. So again, things changed, but not really, It's just the platform was different. So they still continue to do their certificate of merit assessments, which is the big thing in California. And a lot of them still continue with the Royal Conservatory music program, which of course is also virtual. So they still continued with all their activities pre-pandemic. And we still continue to do recitals, only they were virtual. So, we've sort of evolved as well. And the students, I give credit to them. I think they're just, I applaud, their perseverance, because at first was not easy. It was very different. And the families too, they are very supportive. So I think I actually think some of my students, not all, some of them, I think they actually learned better online, just because maybe they were able to focus, and they had to, all of them have had to learn to be more independent.
Yes.
So they've all taken more ownership, I think, of their learning because of this. So there's the silver lining there. So, for some, I think they may even prefer to continue online just because it's worked out so well for them. So
I think it really has been a convenience for many, for parents as well. Especially I live in Canada, and throughout the winter, no one had to put on their boots and get a parking spot and shovel their car, the snow off their car. Of course, you don't know what that's like in California. But it certainly has. I think the other thing that, I don't know about you, but for myself, I have not been to the homes of every one of my students, right? So I think it's given us an opportunity to look inside. What is the instrument that they're playing on? Where are they practicing? And maybe if they weren't as productive as we thought they could be, it's because maybe the piano is in the family room and everyone is watching TV. And so they're telling them, okay, you've practiced long enough, get out. So I think it's been an opportunity for teachers to see what's happening in the students' homes. Have you found that as well?
Oh, yes, certainly. It's giving us a glimpse into their life, as to their family life. So it's been very interesting. And yeah, we've been doing the virtual studios like a lot of people have been doing. This summer, I started a different way of doing our recital. So I call it a summer camp. So instead of having one huge recital, which normally lasted like 2.5 hours to 3 hours, which really was too long, I decided to break them into little mini sessions. So every week, and today we have one today actually. Today will be our 4th week. So every week I would have maybe 3 to 4 students performing only, and then we would have a discussion afterwards about something, a different aspect of playing the piano. So the first week our topic was practice strategies, how to practice effectively, and everybody contribute their ideas. And all the sessions are, I hope anyway, available to watch again, replay on YouTube, on my studio YouTube channel. So anyway, so we sort of, I try to make it different. So otherwise it can be tiring for, an 8-year-old to sit in front of the computer for 2 hours until it's their turn to play.
Yes.
So I decided to do it differently. So so each week it's, I try to limit it to half an hour to 45 minutes. But the first session we went a little overtime because that was the session Kodi played in. So that one I think was about an hour. But yeah, so mini sessions, but we're gonna do it every week for the rest of the summer. So so there's still quite a few sessions coming up, so people can still join.
Oh, that's such a wonderful idea. I just commend you on that. So if other teachers and educators who are watching, where would they be able to watch these videos, Yiyi?
I believe you just go onto YouTube. You can search for my channel, Yiyi Ku Piano Studio, and you'll be able to see the live sessions.
That would be wonderful. I'll actually put the link inside the show notes of this interview, so you can go and check out Yiyi Ku's YouTube channel and go and watch those. And I love that idea. I might have to steal that idea. It's really brilliant. So what type of topics would you cover? Because obviously did you mix up the age groups, or did you have just sort of everyone blocked off in certain age or levels of music?
Well, I decided on the topic. So we have the first week was on practice strategy, and the second week we did note reading, and that was mostly geared towards the beginners. Obviously, the advanced people didn't really need that, but you'll be surprised how a lot of transfer students don't read as well as you think they should. So, and I have my own preference as to how I teach reading. So that was the second week, and then last week we did ear training. We weren't able to get too deep into that just because I wanted to make sure that we didn't end up being a 1 hour session all over again. So I sort of had to stop early, so we didn't sort of get too deep into that topic. And then today we're going to talk about scales, the secrets of playing scales and how to practice your scales. So that's the topic for today. So I decided on a topic today, and the participants, well, I just left it open to the students because, again, that's why I decided to do it this way, because everybody's summer schedule is different. So it was hard to just pick the one day where everybody could be available. So, I decided to do it on a different day of the week, every week, even a different time, so that people can look at, the available dates and go, oh, I'm available that day. So that's the day I'm going to play. So I actually have no control who's going to play right on a particular week, but I try to make sure it's no more than 3 to 4 people. So then basically after each person plays, I'll have them contribute towards the topic of discussion to the best of their ability. The younger kids obviously couldn't contribute too much, so I would probably do most of the talking. But the more advanced kids probably would have more to say. So then that way it gets them involved. So because in most recitals they play, they bow, they go, right? People clap and goodbye. So there's not a lot of interaction. So I figure, this is a sort of a different way to do things, and it gets the students again to take more ownership of what they're doing and to get them to think and verbalize what they do. And also we learn from everybody, right? We learn from our students, and the students learn from each other. I think that's very important too.
I think you're going to set a new trend, because I absolutely love what you are doing. Congratulations. I think it's completely brilliant to have a recital and then to have sort of a theme of discussion where everyone can make it applicable to their particular performance. And they are preparing to be performing. And I think it gives them an opportunity to perform, even if it's in a small setting with 3 or 4 people. But I think it doesn't matter. I know when I was practicing to do my, piano exam, and I remember thinking how nervous, even if the door was open, I knew that my husband could hear me and it would make me nervous. So sometimes if anyone is listening, you get nervous. So
exactly. Even if nobody is listening, I always tell my students, even if you just press the record button on your phone or on your iPad, it gives you a different feeling.
It does.
And nobody is even in the room, right? But it's so useful for them. And that's another thing that I think all of them have benefited is that idea of recording themselves. Because what for the California program, the Certificate of Merit, the exam is done pre-recorded. So you can record your piece as many times as your heart's desire until you feel it's the best you can do. So a lot of them do take advantage of that, and they would record again and again and again, and they realize, right, that they have an appreciation for the recording artist. That it is not easy, but because of that, they've learned to polish to a more higher level because of this recording aspect. So yeah, absolutely. And also the way I do it is that the sessions are live on YouTube. So there may only be 3 or 4 people in the Zoom meeting.
Yes.
But it is live on YouTube, so anybody out in the world could literally tune in and watch. So they know that too. So they are actually performing to a wider audience in that respect. Yeah.
It's so brilliant. I have a funny story to share with you, and I'm sure you have heard these same words. I had a student come in, and of course, she was performing for me, and of course she turned around, and we've all heard this line, I play it much better at home.
Yeah.
And I play it perfectly at home, as if it's my fault, And so I said to her, I'll tell you what, I said, if you play it so much better at home, I
Mm-hmm.
would like you to record it. And this is,
Mm-hmm.
back in the days of cassette tapes. So
Uh-huh.
that's a long time ago. And I said, just bring in your cassette tape. And if you played it so much better at home, I'll give you $20. Just,
Mm-hmm.
because I was challenging her.
Yeah.
So a week went by and she came back into her, piano lesson, and I, had the $20 bill on the piano, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
so are we, you giving me the cassette for the $20? Like what's up? And she
Mm-hmm.
very sheepishly, handed me the cassette tape, and I said, thank you. So I played it, and, she did do a very, a better job.
That's
And
funny.
so I said, well, you can take the $20. And she said, well, I have a confession to make. And I said, okay.
To
And she
be.
said, I went home and I just put in the cassette and I was going to record it. But she
Uh-huh.
said, I practiced so hard all week, recorded it millions of times, erased
Uh-huh.
again,
Yeah.
again, again. She said, because I realized when I was listening to it, it wasn't very good.
Exactly.
So I think by you offering that opportunity to your students, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's brilliant. I highly recommend that teachers, go and listen to and observe your students performing, and so they can see what does that look like as a student, and from a teacher's perspective, and how can you help your students just, have a discussion and being
Mm-hmm.
participating, because we learn from each other. So completely
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. Bravo.
I'm sure I'm not the only one doing it. I mean,
Well,
probably there are other people already doing that too. And I think to a certain extent, we used to call these things group classes or
yes.
master classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only difference is now that it is virtual and, it
Yes.
is on YouTube. So people can be literally in a different country, in a different
Yes.
time zone, and they can still take part and just, be a part of it. So,
Yep.
but again, for the students, I think everything that's happened, I mean, you can look at it and say, oh, I wish this never happened, right? But again, there's always a silver lining. So the different exam boards, they, like the certificate of merit, right? They decided to stay virtual.
Right.
Even after the pandemic, they're just going to be virtual forever, right? As far as I know,
Yes.
who knows if they will change their mind. And it's just pre-recorded. So now there's pros and cons, right? Is it better to be able to play in front of an adjudicator live in Zoom, like the RCM is doing, or is it better to have the student pre-record their program? So there's an argument for both, right? So I
Yes.
think that's why we as teachers, we give them choices.
Yes.
And why not do both, right? Why not have the experience of both? Why limit yourself to only one program? So I think there's benefits in doing the pre-recorded exams, and there's benefits in doing the live Zoom exam. And obviously there's benefits in doing the in-person exam one day, right? Where you
Yes.
have to literally be in the same room as an
Yes.
adjudicator, not just across the internet. So there's benefits in all the different available platforms. So
Yes.
I think that's kind of an eye opener, because in the past exams were always in person, right? And that was the only way they were done. Now we have three choices. We have three possibilities. So
Yeah. And
and
I
that's
think,
all because of the pandemic. Yeah.
and I think, and you're right, it is definitely a silver lining, because I think the other thing is that when you think about a recording artist going into a
Mm-hmm.
recording studio, and I mean, I speak from experience because my husband is in the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
He's lived his life in the recording studio. He's done national television shows for many years. And even though they're television shows, they would maybe spend a little less time in the studio
Mm-hmm.
because it was a live, television show, pre-recorded
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing versus doing an album. But the point is that what you are doing is and even when you talked about pre-recording the exams, you can
Mm-hmm.
record it as many times. Well, isn't that what you do as a real artist?
Mm-hmm.
You don't go in
Yeah.
the recording studio and record take one and you're done. You not
Mm-hmm.
only go in there, you tweak a few little things, right? And pitch if you're a singer,
And
and
we can't even do that, right? So we're not even doing that. So
right.
exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's a great learning tool for students to know, hey, do it again, do it again. You can
Yeah.
see yourself. You can, and the other thing I like too is that is it gives them an opportunity to watch themselves. When I did my exams, there was, no such thing as like, go record yourself and see what you look like. But even for my own students, I remember them preparing for exams, and some of them would be performing, but they didn't realize they had their mouth open. Like they don't know what they look like. And I would say, well, you should smile. And they go, oh, this looks fake. So it was interesting to say, you have to be aware that you are performing and that you're sharing, you're playing with your whole body and not just the sound. We've all seen mechanical performers and it doesn't move you. Even when I watch, and of course I'm talking a lot about, I'm a super fan of Kodi Lee, but when you watch him performing, he doesn't just play. He's using his entire body to express himself musically. And it comes from, inside, but it also comes from you as a teacher to guide him into how does that make you feel? How can you be more expressive with your music? And so, since the pandemic, obviously all of the live shows pretty much have been canceled. And so you're still teaching Kodi Lee. So what is he, let's start with him first, and then I want to find out what you're up to. So what is he doing right now as far as performing and continuing with his career?
Well, again, I don't keep track of his schedule. So I'm just a piano teacher in his life. So I don't really know, I know that he's working on his album. So that's pretty much all I know. But when exactly to the details, I have no idea. So really, I'm just teaching him classical piano. So in that respect, we are preparing him for level 10 RCM exam, just because I think it's a very valuable skill set for him to have, because it's not just the repertoire side of things, it's the technique, all the different technical requirements, the different ways you can play a scale, the broken chords, all of that stuff, right? All that technical stuff. I think it's very useful for him. So, and then obviously the repertoire requirement is huge, right? As you know, for level 10, there's 5 periods, right, to prepare. There's a Baroque, and the Baroque is not just the one piece. If you do Prelude and Fugue, that's 2, basically, right, pieces to prepare. And then the classical, again, the sonatas are usually not just one movement. It's like you got to do 2 contrasting movements, a slow one and a fast one. So odd and odd, it's a lot of work, right? But I like to challenge him. So that's what he's working on. So he's...
And when is he planning on doing the grade 10 exam?
We're hoping sometime this year. Yeah.
And it is a lot of work, no doubt. I mean, hours and hours of time. But I want to say congratulations to you as his teacher, that you are committing to maintaining. And this is, I'm so glad that you shared that with us, because you're continuing to maintain his education. Just because you've won America's Got Talent doesn't mean that, okay, I don't need to study anymore. I'm just going to I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be a performing musician, but that you're continuing to elevate your education. And that's so important. And it's something I'm really proud of.
Well, I think, his mom and his family, they should take the credit for that, because they believe in it. Obviously, they believe it to such an extent that they, to be quite honest, after he won, I'm like, will I see him again? Right? Maybe that thought did cross my mind, right? That perhaps he will be too busy, right, to even continue with his piano study. So it did cross my mind. But then he came back to his lessons. I was like, I cannot believe it. Right?
Yes.
So, but I think his family, right, and his mother, right, Tina, they know the value of education and to continuing to learn, like you said, right?
Yes.
It's so good for him. So all this classical stuff, right, when he does his singing, I mean, the piano playing is amazing, but it's not to the same extent as all the classical repertoire. But it just makes, because he studies classical piano, it means that it became so easy for him, you know, when he accompanies himself, because the piano figurations in those pieces, I mean, they're nowhere near as intricate as a Chopin, a Bach fugue, right? So anyway, because of that, I feel like he's able to probably, again, I'm just imagining, I don't know if it's true or not, and I'm certainly no expert in the vocal side of things, but
Mhm.
because I feel like he has such a tremendous background in classical piano that he is able to focus more on his vocal because the piano playing is so
Yes.
easy for him.
Yes.
With those pieces, so he's able to focus on his vocal. So I'm glad that I can help him out, and that I still get to see him.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wonderful. You've really, and it's such a bond. I remember speaking to someone and I said, I think one of the most wonderful things about being a music educator is that very often we are the only teacher that will actually live almost the entire lifetime through this young person's life as
Mm-hmm.
their music educator, coach,
Mm-hmm.
because in school, of course, you're going to have a new teacher for this and a new teacher every year. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
change, or you might have so-and-so for math, but then next year it's
Mm-hmm.
different. So you don't really to develop that bond. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, for many teachers who have taught specific students over a long period of time, some of my students have taught them for 15, 20 years
Mm-hmm.
and gone on to go to their weddings, and students are teaching them
Mm-hmm.
when they were only 4 years old. So it is we're really blessed to have this profession
We
as,
are.
as music
We are.
educators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, when I was younger and when I first started out teaching, I never thought one day I would have a level 10 student. When you're a young teacher, you teach beginners,
Yes.
forever.
Yes.
So, it was hard to imagine that one day you would have a high level advanced student. And then it happened. And then, you never dreamed of having a superstar student either,
Yes.
right?
Yes. It's interesting you said that. I remember when I was teaching a student and realized that they were almost starting to play better than me. And it was at
Mm-hmm.
that point I realized I had two choices. It was either go back and do my music degree
Mm-hmm.
or give all these students away.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep elevating your own education
Of
as a
course.
teacher.
Yeah.
I thought, well, no, I'm not done yet. I was, a young
Mm-hmm.
teacher back then. So, yep, sure enough, I went back and did my ARCT with the Royal
Mm-hmm.
Conservatory of Music. And I'm so glad that I did, because then too, I could, go and take students through, all
Mm-hmm.
these levels as well, because that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different mindset.
Of course.
And,
Yeah.
as you were talking about preparing Kodi for his level 10, and I remember when I was doing my level 10 exam, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember performing, and it was actually in this room. My mom and dad were still alive at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a recital for my parents, and
Mm-hmm.
I played through all the pieces, and my teacher had shared with me that I could have one word
Mm-hmm.
that would put me in state before I would prepare for this period, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
Baroque, classical, romantic, and so on. So I had a word, and then I
Mm-hmm.
would, sort of change my clothes in my head, where I would have
Mm-hmm.
the ruffles in the cuff, and, become this period piece.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was done the performance and I told my mom, who loved to drink coffee, she goes, "Can I just get a coffee?" I said, "No, it's a concert. You can't talk. You're going to keep your mouth shut. We're going to have pie later, but you're not going to eat or
Mm-hmm.
drink coffee. I can't." Slurping and
Mm-hmm.
complete silence. And when I was done, I was just overcome with emotion, and I just sat there and
Mm-hmm.
cried. And she's like, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "I've been from like the 1600s. I've traveled through all these periods. I'm exhausted." I said, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
moving. The pieces just took me into the stories behind the
Mm-hmm.
composers. And it's
Yeah.
really a powerful thing to play all those pieces, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they don't forget there's etudes too. So it's like
Yes,
a 1 hour program, really, right? When
absolutely.
it's all said and done, probably longer depending on what pieces you choose. Yeah.
Yes. And
So
I remember thinking to myself, well, for Kodi, he's obviously everything is memorized.
yeah.
And for somebody like myself, I remember when I was preparing, I think I was doing I think it's by Bach called Adagissimo. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. And I had the piece, it was memorized. I was ready to go. And my teacher said to me, I'm taking that piece away from you and you're going to do something else. I said, "What are you talking about? I've already memorized it." And she said, "You don't know how to be sad." She said, "This is a very sad piece. This is a reflection on when his brother died, or I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very traumatic, tragic time in his life that he wrote
Mm-hmm.
this piece." And I said, "I can be sad, and she said, "No, no, you don't
Mm-hmm.
understand sad yet." She said, "You will,
Mm-hmm.
but you haven't lived long enough." And I
Uh-huh.
think that is such, Later, of course, I understood that because I kind of did the same thing with my students. They said, you don't have the depth that it takes to play this. And even when you think about Chopin and, like, are you really at a level of maturity in your music that you can understand what was going through, So it's pretty powerful. Well, you've done an amazing job teaching, Kodi. And so just before we wrap up, what's happening next in your studio? Now we know you're just so busy now.
Well, keep learning, right? Like you said, that's fundamental, right? And you are very successful, so I don't need to be talking to you about this. Right? That the learning does not stop. And we learn from other teachers, and we learn from our own students. And it's that constant desire to be better ourselves, right? That if we know that we can always be better, that there's always room for improvement, then we will be a different teacher tomorrow and a better teacher for our students. So as far as plan goes, planning to go back to teaching in person and finding out new repertoire. That's a big one. I think since the online lesson started, I tried to look for resources to help students to learn more independently. So, there's so much out there now, right, in terms of apps, programs that are available for students. So continuing to research for programs that my students can benefit from.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Well, I am so honored that you have taken the time today to share your story with me of, not only Kodi Lee, but, your young daughter who's just following in her mama's footsteps, getting started with her music lessons and, continue to learn and be inspired because you certainly inspire not only your students, but a lot of teachers, a lot of educators that see opportunities. And when we share our ideas, the world is just, I love just to share. It's why I love doing the interview series, because I'm always learning something. And then I love to share it with other people as they're watching this. So thank you so much again, Yiyi, for taking the time to hang out with me today and share your story that continues to grow. And I'm sure we'll be catching up again soon.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been an honor to talk to you, and I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Absolutely. And if people would like to get a hold of you, what is the best way to contact you?
Well, I have a website. It has not been updated for a while, but you can certainly contact me through my website. So it's www.yiyiku.com. That's probably the easiest way to get hold of me.
Perfect.
And I have a Facebook page, which I do update more frequently than my website, and that's at Yiyi Ku Piano. And my YouTube channel is Yiyi Ku Piano Studio. So
perfect.
So those are probably the 3 best ways to contact me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you next time with our next update from Yiyi Ku Music Studio. So thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.